Hey guys, my name is Kristen, and I have a very unusual phobia that might seem really stupid and strange to many people. The thing is that I am really afraid of pigeons. These harmless birds make me very nervous, and I get really tense in their presence. My fear has appeared not without reason. When I was 6 years old, my parents and I went to Venice, which they always had dreamed of visiting. There were a lot of pigeons in one of the squares, and I was shocked by seeing so many birds in one place. After noticing how people were hand-feeding them, I also wanted to feed the birds. Mom bought me some green and put it into my hand. In an instant, pigeons surrounded me on all sides. At first, it was fun, but then real chaos began, and I was left all alone in the center of it. Pigeons suddenly began fighting for food. That's why a huge feathered cloud was flying around me. The birds were pecking, scratching, and even pooping on my clothes. I wanted to scream, but I could not do it because the pigeons were fighting next to my face. When the angry pigeons dispersed, I was really hysterical. Since then, I have been terribly afraid of these birds. But I decided not to tell anyone about my phobia, which I've had for many years, because I realized that it really sucks. It is totally okay to be afraid of spiders, snakes, clowns, but not pigeons. That's why even my parents and close friends did not know anything. Unfortunately, this leads to dire consequences. On my 15th birthday, I decided to invite all my friends to my place. My parents and I prepared everything for the upcoming party, and I had thought it would be like one of the most memorable holidays in my life. And I really remembered it forever, as I was embarrassed in front of everyone. When my friends came to my house, they presented me with a huge cage and a white dove inside. To say that I got an unpleasant shock is an understatement. I tried to pretend that everything was fine, but everything inside of me shrank, and I was afraid. My friend Sandra hugged me and announced to everyone that my little dream had come true. At that moment, I remembered how at school we were looking at the domestic pigeon belonging to our classmate Frank. Sandra was totally delighted by this bird, and in order to be like her, I said that I also dreamed of having a similar pet. But I could not even imagine that my friends would come up with this idea of giving me a bird for my birthday. I said thanks to them and put the cage in the farthest corner of the room, but the pigeon still made me feel tense even though I couldn't see it. I knew that it was in the same room with me, and this made me worry. While everybody was having fun and congratulating me, I tried to overcome the hysteria that I had inside with a smile. Perhaps I would have succeeded if not for Sandra. While they were bringing in a large cake, she let the pigeon out of the cage and secretly put it on my shoulder. When I felt the pigeon on my shoulder, I was totally gripped by panic. Out of fear, I started screaming loudly and waving my arms, throwing the cake right at my friends. Being scared, the dove started flying all over the room, which frightened me even more. Not being able to control my emotions, I started yelling at my friends, demanding that they immediately go away and take that feathered monster with them. My guests were unpleasantly shocked by my inappropriate behavior. They tried to comfort me, but being unable to help myself, I was just being rude to them. So in the end, they left. My parents immediately ran to where the noise was heard, and they were frightened when they saw me in such a state. I couldn't come to my senses, and because of this, it was necessary to call an ambulance. The EMS, arriving a few minutes later, gave me a sedative and asked what caused my panic. I had to confess to both of them and my parents that I had a fear of pigeons. The paramedic nodded his head and said that I had a panic attack because of the aggravated phobia. He advised me to visit a psychologist to eliminate the fear of these birds once and for all. However, visiting a psychologist did not bother me at all, unlike the reaction of my friends to my weird attack. When I came to school the next day, none of them talked to me. I understood that they were upset with me because I behaved so badly towards them. A little while later, I found that the whole class did not want to talk to me. Apparently, the news about my birthday quickly spread among them. The monitor of our class, Frankie, had announced that I'd been boycotted for an indefinite period. This made me really upset, so for the rest of the day, I was walking around the school like a ghost as my friends and classmates were doing their best to pretend they did not notice me. Despite the fact that everybody ignored me, I did not tell my main secret to anyone. It would be better if everyone thought that I was an ungrateful friend than for them to find out about my phobia. At that moment, I was sure that their resentment would quickly disappear, but I was mistaken. When I left school, my friends started throwing paintballs at me. Some of them even shouted that the day before, they had felt as bad as I felt at that moment. I could not stand such embarrassment and ran away from the schoolyard. Right at the gate, I came across Sandra, who did not take part in the mess for some reason. She looked at me bitterly and turned away. When I came back home, the first thing that I noticed was a cage with a dove. Apparently, my parents had not managed to sell it yet. I was so angry that these birds ruined my life that I pushed the cage and ran to my room. However, I could not calm down because of that incident in school. Friends and classmates hated me. Sandra didn't want to talk to me either, and my stupid phobia really drove me crazy. In the end, I decided to take a little walk to calm down my emotions. I did not pay attention to the route as I had my head in the clouds. My feet brought me to a local park where there were no people at all, which was quite strange. I stopped for a second to change the song that was playing, and finally got a look at what was going on around me. I was standing by a bench surrounded by scattered breadcrumbs. Apparently someone had left them to feed the pigeons, which had already noticed me and began to gather around to eat. Being shocked, I could not even take a step. There were more and more birds around, and they were eating the breadcrumbs, climbing on my feet, and pushing into each other. Most of all, I was afraid that they would start fighting for food again and peck me to death. I wanted to call my parents, but unfortunately my phone died. Tears were rolling down my cheeks because of despair. Unpleasant chills ran down my spine because I was constantly thinking of those pigeons were going to attack me. I was trying to disperse them with my hands, but nothing helped. They flew off for some time and then came back again. I realized that if someone didn't help me at that moment, I would faint or go crazy from fear. Fortunately, I noticed a silhouette approaching me, which made me really happy. It was Sandra. I called her and asked her to help me. She didn't ignore me and came up to me. I quickly told her about my fear of pigeons, which made me behave in such a weird manner at my birthday party. Sandra just grinned and said that these were my problems and quickly left, laughing angrily at me. And again, I was left alone, surrounded by the birds that had already begun to sit on me. I could not bear such pressure and burst into tears, no longer hoping that anyone would help me. But suddenly, my psychologist, Mrs. Vincent, showed up. Seeing me with my eyes full of tears and being surrounded by pigeons, she immediately understood what had happened. Without saying a word, she drove the birds away from me and hurried to comfort me so that I would not have another panic attack. Then, Mrs. Weston said that she would not leave me alone in such a state and decided to accompany me home. On the way, she said that I should not be ashamed of my fears, since this was the second time that I found myself in a stressful situation because of this. The psychologist also added that I was supposed to have sessions with her more often in order to quickly overcome my phobia. I was incredibly grateful for her help. After that situation in the park, I began to visit the psychologist several times a week in order to quickly cope with my fear. I also followed Mrs. Weston's advice and stopped being afraid to talk about my phobia. Over time, my classmates started talking to me again, but I could not forgive my old friends for their antics. Even Sandra remained in the past because she abandoned me in my time of need. But thanks to this decision, I was able to find new friends who appreciated my phobia.